Do you do it by guilting yourself into a constrained religious affectation? No. Do we deal with it by grappling with whatever that shortcoming is in your life? Grappling with a sin area in your life is like wrestling a greased pig. You get all over you what's all over the pig. Paul said that. He talked about when sin revived, he died. That when he tried to deal with sin, he found he was only sinning more. And every sincere Christian, that's going to be an issue. Yes, God is a loving God. If there were no hell, if there were no punishment, and sin grieved God, nonetheless, every sincere believer would want to sin not, would want to know what sin is, how am I falling short, and how to deal with it. If there is sincerity in your walk with God. And now, what I want to help you with is those things that you get condemned over, those pernicious character traits, actions, habits, whatever it is that's grieving your conscience before God. The key is not to immerse yourself in trying to grapple with the problem. Einstein understood that. He said you cannot solve the problem on the level of the problem. So, according to John, how do we deal with shortcoming? How do we deal with the disparity between our character and God's holiness? Hereby do we know that we know him if we keep his commandments. So what's the key? Knowing him, pressing into his presence, making his presence your priority. Yes, there's transgression, but we don't retreat from God in the midst of falling short. Remember Adam? Who told you were naked? God didn't want to talk about Adam's nakedness. He said, Adam, where are you? And he said, that word is echoing in our hearts today. He just wants to know us. He wants to walk with us in the cool of our day. And that word, phrase actually in Genesis means that God came whirling upon the breezes. And he's whirling upon the breezes of our inner man right now. Does he want us focused on sin and transgression? No, neither does he want us to pretend it doesn't exist. But he wants us to identify the disparity between our character and his holiness and then address it by seeking knowledge and intimacy with him. Knowing him, not being condemned, not being under some sort of a guilt trip. My brother one time, God bless my mother. My mother was a dear saint, but one of my brothers called my mom God's travel agent. She could send you on a guilt trip pretty easily. And we don't want that. God's not interested in sending you on an all-expense-paid guilt trip. All he wants us to understand is that when there's disparity between your character and his holiness, the key is knowing him. And that's why Paul said, oh, that I might know him. That's what we want. That's the key. And so is there transgression? Is sin in your life? Is that an indicator of what a no good person you are? No, it's a metric for your knowledge of him. How well do you know him? A lot of people will say they know him quite well, but if there's transgression in their life, that transgression is a metric for a deficiency in their knowledge of him. And God's not interested in you focusing on the deficiency, but rather focusing on pressing into his presence and making his presence a priority in your life. If this has blessed you, I'd like to hear from you. My email is russellwalden@gmail.com, RussellWalden. If you'd like to have a transaction of faith in response to this word, you could use the text to give on the screen. Go to Father's Heart Ministry, subscribe to the daily prophetic word, and then send me an email and let me know